Snow was falling hard over St. Mercy Hospital, covering the city streets in a blanket of white. Inside the bright, sterile lobby, people hurried in and out, nurses in scrubs, doctors with clipboards, families whispering in worry. But near the entrance, one small figure stood out. A little girl, maybe 10 years old, stood barefoot on the tile floor, her coat too thin for the weather. Her hair was damp with melted snow, her lips trembling. She held a small, torn backpack tight against her chest like it was her only treasure. "Please, somebody help," she said softly at first, her voice shaking. Then louder, desperate. "My mom's outside." She collapsed on the sidewalk. "Please save her, I don't have any money, but I'll do anything." The receptionist glanced up, startled. "Sweetheart, where's your guardian?" The girl's eyes filled with tears. "It's just us. Please, she can't breathe right." Two nurses exchanged uncertain looks. Hospital policy was clear, no treatment without insurance or a deposit. One of them knelt down gently. "Honey, we can call someone." "No. Please. She's dying." The girl cried, gripping the nurse's sleeve. Her voice cracked, raw with fear. For a moment, the whole lobby went quiet. Even the automatic doors stopped their rhythm. Then, the doors slid open again, and a man walked in, tall, confident, wrapped in a long black coat dusted with snow. Dr. Ethan Carter. He was one of the city's best trauma surgeons, and though few knew it, also one of its youngest billionaires. He had just finished a late surgery and wasn't expecting drama in the lobby. But when he saw the little girl kneeling on the cold floor, something inside him shifted. "Hey," he said gently, crouching down to her level. "What's your name?" "Lily," she whispered, her breath fogging in the air. "Please, sir, my mom's outside." Ethan didn't ask another question. He just stood, shrugged off his coat, and rushed out into the cold with her. The snow crunched beneath his shoes as the girl pointed to a figure lying motionless near the streetlight. When Ethan saw her face, pale, fragile, familiar, he froze. Something deep inside him stirred, something from a past he thought he'd buried forever. Ethan's hands trembled slightly as he checked the woman's pulse. It was faint but still there. "Get me a stretcher," he shouted toward the entrance, and two nurses came running. Snowflakes clung to his dark hair as he lifted the woman carefully into his arms. The little girl ran beside him, holding her mother's hand all the way into the emergency room. Under the harsh white hospital lights, the woman's face looked pale and exhausted, but still graceful, even in pain. Her chest rose and fell unevenly. As the medical team began preparing IV lines and oxygen, Ethan moved closer to check her vitals. That's when he noticed something hanging loosely around her neck, a silver locket, worn and scratched from years of use. Out of instinct, he lifted it gently, and when it flipped open, his heart nearly stopped. Inside was a faded photograph, a much younger version of himself, smiling beside a woman with warm brown eyes. He whispered under his breath, "Mia." The nurse beside him looked confused. "Doctor, did you say something?" Ethan didn't answer. His mind was racing back in time, to a small apartment, years ago, when he was a broke med student barely surviving on instant noodles. Mia was there back then, his classmate, his best friend, and the one who had believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. He remembered the night she sold her mother's necklace just to buy him his first stethoscope. The night she told him, "You're going to save lives one day, Ethan. Just promise me you won't forget why you started." But he had forgotten. After finishing school, life moved fast, success, fame, wealth. And when tragedy struck her family, Mia disappeared. He'd searched for her once, but the world had pulled him in another direction. Now, here she was, the woman who once saved his future, lying on a hospital bed, unconscious and fighting for her life. Ethan swallowed hard. He turned toward the little girl, who stood quietly in the corner, clutching her backpack. Her eyes were wide and full of fear, and something else. They were Mia's eyes. "Is she your mother?" he asked softly. The girl nodded. "Yes, please, save her, mister." Ethan took a deep breath, emotion tightening his voice. "I will. I promise." The operating room lights blazed down like suns. The steady rhythm of the heart monitor filled the air, beep, 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 fragile, uncertain. "Doctor." Ethan Carter stood over the surgical table, fully scrubbed in, his heart pounding as if he were the one fighting to stay alive. "Mia, don't you dare give up on me," he muttered under his breath. Outside the glass window, little Lily pressed her hands against the cold surface, watching the blurry shapes of doctors and nurses move quickly around her mother. She didn't understand what all the machines meant, but she could tell by the looks on their faces that it was serious. Inside, Ethan's focus was razor sharp. Every movement was precise, practiced, perfect, the kind of skill that had made him famous in the medical world. But tonight, it wasn't about prestige. It wasn't about headlines or money. This was personal. His mind kept flashing back to the past, to that tiny apartment they'd once shared textbooks in, to the late nights when Mia would sit across from him, quizzing him on anatomy terms while she sipped instant coffee. He remembered her laughter, gentle, warm, the kind that made life's struggles feel smaller. And he remembered the promise she'd made him repeat before every exam: "You're not just learning to be a doctor, Ethan. You're learning to save hearts." But somewhere along the way, he'd lost that heart. Success had hardened him. He'd stopped seeing faces, only patience. Stopped feeling. Now, as he fought to save her, something inside him cracked open again. He wasn't just operating, he was fighting to rewrite the years of silence, guilt, and regret. "Scalpel," he ordered firmly. The nurse handed it to him without hesitation. Sweat dripped down his forehead. The room fell silent except for the rhythmic hum of the machines. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the steady beep on the monitor grew stronger. The oxygen levels climbed. Ethan froze, then let out a trembling breath. "She's stabilizing," he whispered. "We did it." The nurses smiled. Relief washed through the room like a warm wave. Ethan stepped back, staring down at Mia, alive, breathing, peaceful. A single tear escaped down his cheek. "You once saved my life," he whispered. "Now it's my turn." Outside, Lily saw the doctor lower his head, and even though she didn't know why, she smiled through her tears. Morning sunlight filtered softly through the hospital blinds, painting golden lines across the quiet recovery room. The steady rhythm of the heart monitor was calm now, a sound of life, of survival. Mia stirred slightly, her eyelashes fluttering open. For a moment, she looked disoriented, caught between dreams and reality. Her body ached, but the air felt warm, safe. When her eyes finally focused, she saw a familiar figure sitting by her bedside, head bowed, hands clasped tightly together. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice hoarse. His head lifted immediately. The sight of her awake nearly broke him. "Mia, thank God. You're okay." She blinked, still processing. You're here. After all these years." Ethan nodded, his voice soft. "You gave me this life, Mia. You helped me become the man I am. When I saw you, I couldn't just stand by." Tears welled in her eyes. "You shouldn't have helped me," she whispered weakly. "You've already given me enough. I was proud just to see your name in the papers." He shook his head. "No, you're the reason I ever made it there." For a long moment, silence filled the room, heavy, emotional, unspoken. Then the door creaked open, and Lily peeked in, holding a small cup of hot chocolate in both hands. "Mom," she cried softly, running toward the bed. "You're awake." Mia gathered her daughter weakly into her arms, tears spilling freely now. "Baby, it's okay. Mommy's right here." Ethan watched them, his heart swelling with a mix of guilt and gratitude. "She's incredible, Mia. Brave, just like you." Mia smiled faintly. "She's my whole world." Ethan stood, walking closer. "You know," he said gently, "you once told me that kindness always finds its way back. I didn't believe you then. But last night, your daughter proved you right." Mia met his eyes, tired, emotional, but filled with something he hadn't seen in years: peace. "I never stopped believing in you," she whispered. "Not even when life got hard." Ethan smiled, his voice trembling. "Then let me believe in you now. I'll make sure you both have the life you deserve." In that quiet hospital room, surrounded by morning light, two souls finally reconnected, bound not by the past, but by the second chance that kindness had given them. A week had passed since that long, stormy night. The snow outside St. Mercy Hospital had begun to melt, and sunlight now touched the world again, soft and hopeful, like a promise of new beginnings. Mia walked slowly through the hospital corridor, her hand resting on Lily's small shoulder. Her steps were still unsteady, but her heart felt light, alive in a way she hadn't felt for years. Nurses smiled as they passed, whispering about the miracle woman in room 302 who had survived against all odds. When they reached the front desk, the receptionist handed Mia a plain white envelope. "Someone left this for you," she said with a smile. "He didn't say much, just that you'd understand." Mia frowned slightly, then opened the envelope. Inside was a small brass key, a folded note, and a sleek black card. She unfolded the note with trembling fingers. "Greater than, for the woman who once gave me hope, and for the little girl who reminded me what it means to care. Your new home is waiting at 248 Willow Street. Welcome to your fresh start. E.C." Mia's breath caught in her throat. E.C., Ethan Carter. Her hand covered her mouth as tears filled her eyes. Lily looked up, confused. "Mom, what is it?" Mia smiled through her tears. It's a miracle, sweetheart. Someone just gave us a second chance." That evening, as the sun set, they stood in front of a cozy little house on Willow Street. The paint was fresh, the lights glowed warmly through the windows, and a small garden waited out front, exactly the kind of home Mia had always dreamed of giving her daughter. Lily ran ahead, laughing, her footsteps echoing across the porch. "Mom, it's beautiful." Mia stood there for a moment, holding the key in her palm. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you, Ethan." Down the street, a black car sat quietly. Inside, Ethan watched them with a soft smile. He didn't step out. He didn't need to. Seeing them happy was enough. As he drove away, the snow began to fall again, light and gentle, like blessings from above. Because sometimes, the kindness you give comes back when you least expect it. And when it does, it changes everything. Heart.